It's time for review part 6 of Hearthstone's next expansion, Descent of Dragons. Through the first 66 cards, we covered them one by one, roughly in the order they were released. However, the expansion is coming out in a couple days, and all the cards from the set have been released. So these last reviews will cover the remaining cards from several classes each. This video will cover the remaining Paladin, Priest, and Rogue cards from the set. These reviews will be much quicker than the first few per card. The reviews of 13 more Descent of Dragons cards are coming up.
Who's up for an adventure?
Now, before we get into the reviews, I'd like to note how we do card reviews on this channel. Rather than 5-star ratings for cards, we normally ask 3 questions Hearthstone players really want to know. First, does the card fit into one of the current meta decks, Tier 1 through Tier 3 decks, per HS Replay's tier list? So is it meta now? Second, will the card fit into a meta deck once the set comes out? Meaning, if it won't slot into a current deck, is it powerful enough to make a new deck meta viable? So is it meta later? And third, perhaps most importantly, does it inspire or enable crazy, experimental, or meme decks? So is it meme deck worthy? However, as the meta has just shifted due to the loss of the Tombs of Terror cards, and we're on the cusp of the new meta, we're just going to answer questions 2 and 3. So are they meta later and meme deck worthy? Each card will get a yes or no to these questions. As we're doing quicker reviews as the main event, there will not be quick reviews at the end. Let's get right into it. Here are all the Paladin cards which have been announced for the set. It's nice to be able to see the entire group for each class to see how they work together. So we'll leave these up and just fade out the cards which have already been covered. Aside from Dragon Paladin, it looks like another interesting archetype Blizzard is pushing for Paladin is no neutral cards archetype. But we'll look at that a little bit more when discussing the cards associated with it. The first of the cards we haven't discussed yet is Righteous Cause. Righteous Cause is a 1-mana side quest to summon 5 minions. The reward is that it gives your minions +1/+1. When initially looking at this card, I thought it would only see play with Odd Paladin in Wild, but the card we can see right below this makes me think we may be able to use this a bit in Standard as well. However, for how powerful each of the Paladin archetypes are at the moment, and compared against the power level of the rest of the cards for Paladin from this set, I don't know this can make the cut. Perhaps in the no neutral cards Paladin deck, but even then, I don't think it will be able to join the upcoming meta. As for meme deck worthiness, perhaps we can make a token mech Paladin work with this? Initially, I thought the requirements and the reward aren't quite difficult and powerful enough to make it stand out as an unusual or peculiar deck, but I think we can take things in an interesting direction with lots of underused mechs. We'll go ahead and give this meme deck worthy status. There doesn't appear to be a Righteous Cause in the upcoming meta, but mechs will unite for a Righteous Cause. The Dragon Explorer joining Sir Finley Murgleton is the Bronze Explorer. This little guy is a 3-mana 2/3 with lifesteal, and the same battlecry as the other explorers to discover a dragon. At 1 mana more than the usually accepted cost for this stat line, we get lifesteal and discovery of a dragon. Compared against Poisonous for Hunter and +2 spell damage for Mage, lifesteal actually looks pretty appealing. Not only does this provide value and a little bit of healing, he can also serve as a decent target for buffs. As a good early target for Dragon Rider Talrifa's buff, I think this will see play in a Dragon Paladin in the upcoming expansion. So will Dragon Paladin be a meta or a meme deck? With support from Amber Watcher and Bronze Herald, I think it may actually be a meta deck. But we will still use the Bronze Explorer as a buff incubator and survival tool in our Dragon Rider Talritha, Da'andateka, Immortal Prelate, Deathwing super buff deck. So we'll go ahead and give him meme deck worthy status. Bronze Explorer gets to explore the new meta and memes. So if we want to play Righteous Cause, the next card would help us quite a bit on that path. It's Skyclaw, a 3-mana 1/2 mech with an effect that gives your other mechs +1 attack and a battlecry that summons 2 1/1 microcopter mechs. Essentially, this summons 5/4 in stats, but you'll lose 2 attack if your opponent kills the Skyclaw minion first. This has terrible synergy with Kangor's Endless Army, so Mech Paladin will not want to run this, and I don't know that there's enough support for a token Paladin to be powerful in the upcoming meta. Perhaps you could run one copy in a Highlander Paladin deck for the stats and potential upside of buffing other mechs? I don't think it makes the cut though. But this does inspire an unusual archetype that hasn't seen any play yet: Token Mech Paladin. We can make a meme deck with this, Explodinator, Replicating Menace, and Camouflage Dirigible together with Righteous Cause for a truly unique play experience. We'll probably die horribly, but it'll be a fun experiment. Skyclaw doesn't claw its way into the current meta, but can climb towards the sky in our token mech deck. Now we see the first card which is also inspiring a different, unique archetype: Lightforged Zealot. He's a 4 mana 4/2 with a battle cry which reads, if your deck has no neutral cards, equip a 4/2 True Silver Champion. You'd normally pay 4 mana for a 4/2 True Silver Champion anyways, so if your deck meets the requirements, getting a 4/2 minion with the effect is definitely the better play. When going through the Paladin cards currently available, I realized that the power level of the cards in Paladin could actually make a strong enough deck to compete in the current meta when stacking the effect of this card with the next card to be covered. While a bit dubious, I think no neutral Paladin can actually produce a tier 3 meta deck. If not, it'll be a meme. But this card in particular works well with other True Silver Champions, Silver Sword, and Mysterious Blade to make a weapon-heavy Smork and heal Paladin deck. Our enemies will die as we heal ourselves back to full health. Lightforged Zealot gets to rampage in the new meta and meme decks. The other no-neutral card's Paladin minion is Lightforged Crusader, a 7 mana 7/7 with a battle cry that if your deck has no neutral cards, it will add 5 random Paladin cards to your hand. This is huge value, though a bit more dicey of a play than the previous card, as it will likely use up your entire turn to play, and you only want to play this when you're running low on cards. Still, pairing its fate with Lightforged Zealot, I'm going to gamble a bit and say this card will join the meta as well. Perhaps we run this in a Star Aligner deck as a refill after we've drawn all the neutral cards out of our deck. 2 Prismatic Lens with 2 of these, 2 Star Aligners, and all 1 mana spells, and maybe a few weapons for good measure, would lead to interesting games where we would need this to refill our hand with resources after we run through everything. Hidden Wisdom and Blessing of Wisdom on one of their minions could provide card draw, and proper sequencing of secrets would give us a minion or 2 on board for some stall. We're gonna make this deck and pull the combo off, and we're gonna hope Lightforged Crusader gives us enough value to finish the game. So yes, meme deck worthy. Lightforged Crusader forges a spot in the meta and charges forward into meme decks. Now we get to see the priest cards. As each class associated with the League of Evil gets their own version of Galakron for free when logging in, there are 11 cards total for each of these classes. This time, it looks as though a fair bit of support was given to Random Generation Priest, with some new Thief Priest cards, and Galakron's Hero Power to add a random priest minion to your hand. The first card we'll cover from Priest also generates a random minion, but it's a lackey instead of a priest minion. Whispers of Evil is a 0 mana spell to add a lackey to your hand. Until now, Priest hasn't had a good way to get lackeys, so they haven't used them very much. However, a 0 mana spell is really good with Gadget Zan Auctioneer for card draw, and perhaps we'll see a meta where Sand Drudge and Grave Horror actually see play? Probably not, but that can be one of the meme uses of this card. Lackeys are powerful, but I'm not sure this earns a slot in any of the upcoming meta decks. It doesn't synergize with any of the decks which were in the meta until now, and it doesn't really work well with the other priest cards from this set. 0 cost cards are usually not to be underestimated, but I'm gonna have to say this will not be joining the new meta. Whispers of Evil does not whisper anything in the new meta, but it will spread many rumors via meme decks. Now we get to see a really good invoke minion. Disciple of Galakron is a 1 mana 1/2 with a battle cry to invoke Galakron, meaning she will add a random priest minion to your hand. Just as 0 mana cards are usually not to be underestimated, 1-drop minions with decent effects are also not to be underestimated. And I think this one makes the cut, at least as long as Priest Galakron survives the new meta. Time Rip is a questionable invoke card, and the neutral invoke minions aren't particularly exciting, but Fate Weaver is amazing. Perhaps a semi-control version of Galakron Priest can survive the new meta, in which case this will definitely be in that deck. Optimistic that Priest Galakron can make it, we'll give this meta later status. As for memes, this will be vital to improving our Galakron for play before we complete the quest in our Galakron Quest meme deck. She definitely joins the memes. Disciple of Galakron will get to serve in the upcoming meta and meme decks. And as some additional support for a semi-thief, semi-random minion style of play, priests also get Mind Flayer Karj. It's a 3-mana 3/3 with a battle cry to choose an enemy minion and a death rattle to summon a new copy of it. If it could retain the minion inside when coming back from Wretched Reclaimer or Grave Rune, this would be a remarkably powerful card. As it is, it's a 3-mana 3/3 which can at least give you a 1/1 extra in stats after it dies, but probably 2/3 or better in most cases. And sometimes you'll get to copy something amazing from your opponent in the late game. It may take a while to join the meta, but I think Mind Flayer Karj will find a home in a meta deck eventually. So even if Wretched Reclaimer and Grave Rune can't bring back Mind Flayer Karj with a minion inside, we can make copies of it with Shadowy Figure, Vivid Nightmare, Power Word Replicate, and even Faceless Manipulator. With Seance and over a couple turns, we could potentially fill the board with an army of Faceless ones, ready to summon minions that started in our opponent's deck to swarm and kill our opponent. Terrifying and hilarious at the same time. Let's go. Mind Flayer Karj will flay the minds of opponents in meta and meme decks. We referenced it a moment ago, but the next card we get to review is Grave Rune, a 4-mana spell to give a minion the effect Death Rattle. Summon 2 copies of this. If Silence isn't in the meta, this card will be in nearly every Priest deck. Even Combo Priest could use this. But this on a Convincing Infiltrator in a mass res deck sends shudders down my spine. And imagine if you can get this on Katrina Muerte. The opponent will want to kill her as quickly as possible, but they'll have to deal with 2 more of her when they do. I'm certain this will find a spot in the meta deck or 2. Ever wondered how Priest could effectively make a board with quite a few Desert Obelisks? Well, thanks to Fate Weaver, Wretched Reclaimer, Vivid Nightmare, and this, we can probably make a board of 5 Desert Obelisks fairly reliably, if we survive long enough. Still, there are lots of meme decks this can enable. Grave Rune will carve its place into the upcoming meta and meme decks. And yes, there are a couple dragons for Priest in the Descent of Dragons expansion. Chronobreaker is a 5-mana 4/5 dragon with a death rattle that if you're holding a dragon, he will deal 3 damage to all enemy minions. The stats are low for a 5-mana minion, and it would be a lot more effective as a battle cry, but doing 3 damage to all enemy minions is still very powerful. Combo and Resurrect Priest are not going to be excited to run this, so it would only be good in a dragon deck. Perhaps a Dragon Control Priest deck will develop and use this guy? If Dragon Priest is a thing, this will join the archetype, but I'm not sure that will be one of the meta Priest decks. I don't think it will be quite powerful enough to survive the meta during this expansion, but perhaps with a bit more synergy in the future? For now, I'm not going to say this will be able to join the meta. As for memes, while we could make quite a few copies of this to blow up our opponent's board, it doesn't really inspire or enable an unusual or experimental game plan. So this doesn't get meme deck status either. Chronobreaker does not break into the meta or meme decks this expansion. The last card for Priest is their legendary dragon, Murazond the Infinite. He is an 8-mana 8/8 with a battlecry that reads, play all cards your opponent played last turn. His effect is very similar to Tess Greymane, so you summon minions, and the spells are used on random targets, but you don't benefit from battlecries and deck synergies your opponent has. However, when timed well, this can provide a massive swing turn. As there will be quite a few decks looking to make powerful swing turns themselves, I imagine this will find its way into a control deck that can join the new meta. As this is heavily dependent on what your opponent played the previous turn, it is very difficult to build a particularly impressive experiment around this card. We could play it several turns in a row with the Dragon Breeder, but it's not sufficient to inspire memes. Unfortunately, Murazond the Infinite does not join the memes. Murazon the Infinite has nigh infinite potential in the upcoming meta, but its options for memes are extremely finite. For Rogue, we've already seen all the cards except for two. The game plan for Rogues may not be as clear as for other classes with this set, but there are several that focus on playing with card draw, card generation, card destruction, and card shuffling mechanics. So perhaps that's the direction Blizzard was thinking for Rogues this expansion? The first of the cards for Rogue this review is Bloodsail Flybooter. She's a 1 mana 1/1 pirate with a battlecry to add 2 more 1/1 pirates to your hand. Rogue has quite a few synergies with pirates, and a 1-drop that provides a perfect turn 2 play is unusual. This is also great to help with enabling Rogue combo cards more consistently. Bloodsail Flybooter wouldn't get to join a Captain Hooktusk Rogue deck, but there are a lot of Rogue archetypes that will be happy to have her. She should sail right into the upcoming meta. And as for a meme deck, she'll go great in a Cannon Barrage Pirate Rogue, as with 9 mana you can play 3 pirates and do 12 damage to the enemy side of the board. Bloodsail Flybooter flies into the upcoming meta and kicks a few meme decks into action as well. The last card for this review is Stowaway. He's a 5 mana 4/4 with a battlecry to draw 2 cards from your deck, if there are any cards in it that didn't start there. This works great with Waxadred's Candles and Shadow of Death's Shadows. It can also help draw copies of minions shuffled into your deck with Togwaggle Scheme. He's understated for 5 mana, but the effect is really powerful in a Waxadred deck focused on making multiple copies of Waxadred. Sadly, I don't know that any of the decks which center around shuffle effects will be strong enough to compete in the upcoming meta. Until now, they haven't been, and while I would love to be proven wrong, I don't think we'll get to see a meta-viable shuffle deck, even with this card. A deck that uses Waxadred will probably be able to join the meta, but I don't think that deck will use Stowaway. However, we can have all kinds of fun with this guy in meme decks. Pogo Hopper and Academic Espionage are coming back with a vengeance, and this will increase the consistency and cycle speed of those decks. We're going to pull off all kinds of bizarre combos with Stowaway's help. Stowaway is too well hidden for the upcoming meta, but he'll reveal himself in all different sorts of meme decks. And that's all the remaining cards from Paladin, Priest, and Rogue for Descent of Dragons. Check out earlier reviews if you want to see one of the minions from these classes not covered this time. Remember, this is a subjective review, but I'm making some pretty direct predictions. Let me know in the comments below what you think, what you're looking forward to, and if you have any crazy meme deck ideas you'd like to see. If you enjoyed the video, like, subscribe, and check back for future reviews. Coming soon. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep exploring. Mind Flare Karsh.